Hey, so everybody is on the same page. I wanted to talk just a minute about the EDAPT Relearning Guidelines. Now, first of all, these are optional. You don't have to do them. However, you would be crazy not to because these are free points. If you make a 20 on your EDAPT out of 25 and you could do 4 templates and get 25 out of 25, why would you not do that? So really good. You didn't do as well as you wanted to on the quiz this week. You didn't do as well on the EDAP. Get some of those points back by doing the relearning. Can't give you points on the quiz, but we can certainly give you points on the relearning. And points are points. Relearning on the EDAPT. So you complete your EDAPT. While you're doing it, you're looking. And as you go through, notice the one for the week or the two or the three or the four that are weaker areas that you didn't make 100 on that concept here or there. And for those, do the relearning. This is straight out of your EDAPT, okay? The PLP, we're supposed to say. So what are you supposed to do? These are the guidelines. Review the EDAPT unit performance. Identify the greatest opportunity, the ones you didn't do so well on, and then pick those to do a content map. The minimum number required, you can always do more. And they're great to stick in a notebook and study later if you do them well, like you're supposed to. And that's why completing more than the required is recommended. You can't get more if there's 25 points. It doesn't matter how many you do, you're not going to get more than 25 points for that EDAPT. Okay, you can only get up to the max points for that EDAPT that you're working on. You would have to do one for each EDAPT. If there were 2 EDAPTs in the week, you'd have to do relearning for both of them and for the number of concepts that you needed. So let's look here for just a minute. Here is the rubric. This is my checklist for grading you. Now, pay attention to right here. 0 concept maps completed. You can't get any points. Less than 5 criteria met. These are the 5 criteria. So you have to do all 5. Less than 5, 0. So let's look at what they are. Complete the EDAPT, PLP, by the assigned due date. Our PLPs, EDAPTs, are due on Wednesdays. Wednesday by 11:59 p.m. Okay? So you need to complete, first of all, the EDAPT by 11:59 p.m., no later. Do it earlier, but you can't do it later. Then, based on how you did on that EDAPT, and you were watching and you were looking at the concepts and you wrote down the ones that you didn't do as well on, right? So those then are the ones you do your concept map on. So let's say you made less than 80%, right? You got to do 4 concept maps. That means if you made a 79%, you got to do 4 concept maps. That means if you made a 49, you got to do 4 concept maps. Okay? Do those 4 concept maps. Do them completely, thoroughly, do a good job, and you'll get 100 instead of a 49 or a 79. Make sense? So let's say that you made, here's greater than 90. So you made a 92 or a 96. You do 1 concept map and you'll get 100%. So you see how that works? If you made 80 to 84%, you'll have to do 3 concept maps and meet all of these criteria, one of which is doing the required number of concept maps, right? So do it on time, do the right number of concept maps, complete all areas. We're going to look at that in just a minute. Okay? And use 2 scholarly sources. I need to highlight that in bright yellow, and it won't let me because I'm not equipped to edit it. So I'm going to highlight it in dull gray. All right, there we go. At least 2 scholarly sources from the last 5 years, including the textbook. You can use your book, but you still have to find a scholarly source, and you find that not on the internet, right? Don't Google it or Bing it or whatever you do. Safari it. You must go to the library. Search the library databases and find a scholarly source. Scholarly means refereed. And if you're in those library databases, there's a place to click. There's a little referee shirt, I think, and it'll say refereed or peer reviewed. And click that. And then everything you find should be scholarly / peer reviewed. Okay? So look for those. And you're going to need one or two. If you didn't use your textbook, you're going to need two. And they need to be published in the last 5 years. Now, this is 2022 currently, so it would have to be published 2017 to 2022, right? So you need two of the. How you know something's not scholarly? Number one, you got it off the internet. Number two, it may be a guide or something or an editorial, or it's not in a scholarly journal. It's in a magazine or newspaper or internet, something like that. But scholarly articles, scholarly journal articles, have an author and they have a date and they have a reference list. So look for those things. If you find something and it doesn't list an author and it doesn't list a date, how do you know it's in 5 years, right? And it doesn't have a reference list, then how do you know any of their information is correct? Don't use it. Go to the library, find a scholarly source. Now, the other part of that, APA says you must cite your sources in the narrative. So when you're writing the body of your little template, you're filling it out, you have to use a citation to show which information came from which source. You can't just make a list of references at the bottom of the page because then, you could put 10 down there and how do we know you used them? So it's not just a list of sources that could have been used. Which ones did you use and where did you use them? So cite them. In the narrative, cite them. And citation is usually the author's last name and the date. And then that's going to match that article, that reference on the reference list. If you didn't cite it, it's not considered used, shouldn't be on the reference list. If it's cited, it needs to be on the reference list. If it's on the reference list, it's got to be cited somewhere in the paper. Now, that doesn't mean quotes. We don't like quotes. We want you to read that article. We want you to summarize what you want to say in your own words, but then give credit for the original. A lot of people think if they don't quote, they don't have to cite. You got to cite whose ever idea that original was. Whose ever idea it was, give them credit for it. Even if you're putting it in your own words, it was their idea. Give them credit. All right, so you got to cite two sources. If you make a list at the bottom and you didn't cite anything, you're not going to get credit for this. All right, and then everything has to be original. Now, most of these we're putting through Turnitin. We're not requiring you, at least I'm not requiring you to handwrite them. Okay, you can type them, but you can't cut and paste. You got to do what it said up above, and that is read it, understand it, put it in your own words, give credit to your source, right? Cutting and pasting is not original, and you will not get credit. So those are your 5 things you have to do. Complete it on time, right number of concepts, complete the whole map, 2 sources, and original work. Okay? No cutting and pasting. And that's really what quotes are, is cutting and pasting, by the way. So don't do that. Here's your template. It's all got to be filled out, every part. That means it's got to have your name on it. That means it's got to have the EDAPT unit on it. What week were you in? What was the unit? What was the concept? I think there were 7 last week. There's 8 concepts in the EDAPT this week. Which concept are you writing on? Do you have to do more than one? It's important to put the concept on here. Look at what you're saying here. This is asking for a scenario that you experience, your personal or healthcare experience. Tell us about a situation that you saw. What was that situation? Maybe it was your mother who had breast cancer and was in tremendous pain, and the pain medicine didn't seem to be working, and nobody would listen when she called out and asked for pain. Okay, so then we come over here, and this is where your resources really come into play. Tell us here, based on the resources that you've been able to find, what should the nurse do? What is the role of the nurse when taking care of a patient with pain? It is to monitor the pain, and South 2019 says you should monitor that pain at least every 2 hours. It says that you should go back an hour after giving pain medication and verify that the pain medication was effective. And if it wasn't, you need to do something else. It may give you alternative methods of pain relief, distraction techniques, a light back massage, repositioning. It may tell you how to identify nonverbal indications of pain. Okay, so what does your source say? Cite your source. South 2019 says this. However, who is the book? McGantz or whatever 2022 indicated that the nurse should da 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 da, right? Whatever that is. All right. The final column. What are the concepts that this might relate to? Besides pain, maybe inflammation, um, post-op surgical pain, lots of different things. So this is application. Apply what you've known in the past, in theory, in clinical, in lab. Maybe you're doing something now in health assessment, and how that links to this current situation. So that may be that in assessment, I learned that one of the best ways to identify pain is this. How do you make pain more objective? How, when you say, they say, I'm really in pain. Well, how do you know? So maybe you learned something in assessment that was how to rate pain on a scale of 1 to 10 to make it more objective and less subjective. Or maybe you learn the objective and the subjective signs and symptoms of pain. So all of that can be put in that third column. So you see that it's more than just a couple of sentences to be complete. I hope this helps, and let me know. And thank you for listening.